thank you everybody for being here. I'm really excited. This is going to be a conversation with Kim Hanke, who is the founder of Elm Park Labs. We're going to be getting into what Elm Park Labs is and what they do and how they were started today. But I wanted to talk a little bit about like Kim's background. She's had like a really amazing background coming up into the AR, VR, XR industry. And she actually started going through part design and doing illustrations, which is pretty interesting. And then she moved up several ranks in a company until she was leading a team. And from there, had a pretty interesting journey all the way to starting her own company. And so, yeah, that's the brief summary of it, and we'll get into it. And so, Kim, how are you doing today? Thanks for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for the invite.
Of course. So I guess let's start off on what is Elm Park Labs? Who are you guys? What's your goal, and what do you do?
So Elm Park Labs is a XR technology company that delivers virtual reality, augmented reality, mixed reality, and some interactive 3D. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we create solutions for customers and clients that take anything that you would have normally have done that would have been paper-based, mm-hmm. and take that and apply that into any type of instruction that you can think of. So pretty much anything you do, you're being trained. I'm going to learn how to operate something. I'm being trained. I'm going to maintain something. I'm being trained. Mm-hmm. I need to go work on an oil rig out in the middle of the ocean, mm-hmm. and I need to learn how to do that before I go there. I can do that in VR and do it in a safe environment, so I don't fly out to the rig and not know what I'm doing. So that would be a couple examples.
Mm-hmm. And I've seen that it's used in like the entertainment industry a lot. Like, is there a separation in level between I'm just going to call XR to all AR, VR, etc. I'm going to call it XR. Is there like a level of differentiation between what you work on in entertainment?
Well, so we don't really focus on the entertainment area, even though everything that we do that's related to the way the software is developed, the way the software is delivered, mm-hmm. and what the experience is from the user side, mm-hmm. it's all very similar. So you can create anything in VR, and you could have a concert going on. Mm-hmm. You can create the same thing, just like I said, around the training, mm-hmm. of multiple different training applications in virtual reality or product review, design reviews, and have that networking work on a global scale. You could have people from Australia, the United States, Ireland, all in the same scene, mm-hmm. having a conversation and reviewing a product just as easily as you could have a concert. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit two different mediums, I guess, and deliveries for the audience, but same base technology.
Mm-hmm. And who are the customers of this product? Is it individual people?
On the entertainment side, it would be individual people, mm-hmm. but then also it would be the recording artist, right? That, and then that would go out to the people or whoever wants to buy a ticket to go to the concert. On the other side, for the manufacturing groups or the safety training or product review, the customers and users of that would be the OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, so Chrysler, GMs, Fords, Toyotas, to a ExxonMobil, mm-hmm. company.
So that's really interesting because, and I've thought that it's really interesting because you're not, the end user is not the same person as the one that you are selling this to.
Right. So you sell it into a company that needs to use it for their employees. Mm-hmm. And then their employees, go in and they will be given assignments of different training exercises to go through. Maybe they need to have training on repairing a press.
Mhm.
Maybe they need training on how to maintain an electrical panel that's 10 stories up in the air.
Mhm.
And those training exercises would be things that maybe they need to do on a yearly basis.
Mhm. And what types of things can you do to make the people that are doing the purchasing content with like the level of training that the employees will receive?
Right off the bat, get them involved,
Mhm.
right? So discuss with them, because this is where we're at today is just the infancy of what's to come over the next 10 years. So what we need to do is we need to do discovery up front with them. How do you do what you do today?
Mhm.
Why do you do it the way you do it? And what can we do to enhance what you're doing at the same time?
Mhm.
So they don't need to make the switch 100% right out of the chute. They can do this over a period of time.
Mhm.
If you think about right now with our situation with COVID, companies would pay to fly team members in from around the country to a training center to have a classroom training, maybe on PowerPoint and maybe the quiz. Now you can have them download this remotely, go into a VR unit or use their tablet in AR
Mhm.
and do the same training. The instructor can be there, the other participants can be there, and they can complete the exercise.
Mhm. Yeah, that's well, that opens. I think. Would you say then that COVID has opened the door to connecting people? I've heard. I think Tamara, or the director of Microsoft, said that COVID has caused 2 years of technological progress in 2 months. Like,
Yes,
and so what has like Elm Parks' experience been with the pandemic?
the Excel. So when COVID hit, nobody knew what to do. We were in the middle of quoting a whole bunch of projects. We had just demoed a bunch of work, and all of a sudden, on a dime, it seemed,
Mhm.
everybody was working from home. So, so what do you do? How do you coordinate that? So the first thing was getting our feet wet on how are we going to communicate? What tools are we going to put in place so that we can keep the same level of interest and activity going?
Mhm.
And it probably only took a week. And then all of a sudden, it seemed like all the team members were working actually longer hours because everybody was bored. They were, they were at home, and some of them were home alone with nobody else to communicate with.
Mhm.
Um, so, the effect of COVID has exponentially increased the activity of what we're seeing now.
Mhm.
Now people they have their feet on the ground, they're engaging in email, they're not afraid to get on a Zoom call, they want to talk about it.
Yeah.
We've created a bunch of videos so that we can show people what we do, talk them through it, and start doing business that way. Never thought in a million years I wouldn't be having a face-to-face meeting to land business.
Yeah, I'm gonna want to know about like how companies like Reception have been, because this is a pretty novel way of training employees. But first, it looks like we've got a couple of questions in the chat, and so I'd like to address those. Uh,
Okay.
so, are there proposed military applications for this technology?
Oh, absolutely. Um, yeah, there's a lot. There are so many different efforts going on in every branch of the military, and I would say even outside of the United States.
Mm.
And then there's collaborations between the different military groups, right? U.S. and our uh, partners
Mm.
that will collaborate in development as it goes forward. I was on a, I was actually on a call yesterday. It was a conference where they pulled together probably, I think there was 195 people on the Zoom meeting
Mm.
to get a briefing about the product that the general wants to create. They gave the briefing, and then all of the suppliers are now going to be given what is called the request for information. And at that point, we will fill that out, send it in, and see where we end up. And they will match up different people to partner together on these programs.
Oh, that's interesting. So they manually go through and connect different companies that have offered.
Right.
Solutions.
So, you know, imagine you have a company that builds a simulator
Mhm.
that simulates a truck, but
Mhm.
they don't create the VR.
Mhm.
Well, they'll pair these companies up and see if there's a good fit there, and they'll work together on it.
Gotcha. Follow-up question to that. So I'm sure, people that are looking to start a company, like how can they look to get involved um, in those types of meetings where they're presented with a problem and look for an application of a solution?
Say that again, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. So like if somebody had started a company around technology, for example, like how could they look to get involved with some meetings where they're like presented with problems like this?
You mean specifically for the military or just all?
I guess, well, not specifically for the military, but I'm sure that they do like briefings like this across the industry where they say, hey, we have this problem.
Yeah. Every company, almost every company, mid-size and larger today,
Mhm.
are involved in what's called Industry 4.0.
Mhm.
And it is part of the fourth industrial revolution
Mhm.
that started probably about 2012, 2013.
Mhm.
And if you just start Googling Industry 4.0 and you start looking at the fourth industrial revolution, they are all talking about building what is called a digital twin. So if there is a manufacturing line that has robots and people and equipment and sensors and anything you can think of to do with that manufacturing line, they will take that physical line and make a digital twin of it
Mhm.
and have it operate exactly the same way. And the reason for that is to keep the product updates and the revisions coordinated between sensors, robots, people, part changes. What is the best way to go about doing something, and it's the best way to evaluate something. So the information is out there. There are a ton of AR, VR, XR associations.
Gotcha. So how long on average does it take to create the virtual reality environment for a client?
It can range. It depends. We could take one exercise pretty much from scratch. I would say you're looking at the beta, the one for the customer evaluation. That could be within about 5 weeks.
Mhm.
In some cases, and that would be more of like a safety electrical type scenario, like a safety training around that. In another scenario, let's say we're going to do surgery, open heart surgery, and we're going to do that in VR. That might take 6-7 months to create. You need the body, you got all the textures, you need some haptic feedback in the hands to make sure what you're doing with the different tools. So it's going to have a lot of range.
That makes sense. Does having a digital twin have anything to do with that time?
Well, I would apply it the same way. Yeah, you need the digital twin because you need to be able to teach the doctors, nurses, anesthesiologists, everybody how to react in an operating room without just practicing on me or you for the first time,
Mhm.
right? It would be really nice to know they scored a 10 in VR before they tried it on you.
Gotcha.
You know, and that's another, going back to COVID, that is another effect of COVID.
Mhm.
Used to be that the student residents could go into an operating room and witness and participate what the doctors and nurses were doing.
Mhm.
Now they can't do that. So how do you provide that information right now?
After COVID, do you think you'll still see the same atmosphere that you have now?
I'm anticipating everything will increase in velocity for what we're doing and what we're creating.
Awesome. So switching gears a little bit, let's talk a little bit about your background and how it is that you got to where you are today. Um, and so I'm thinking it would be interesting to talk about how you got into the training space in the first place, and then maybe work our way backwards from there. Um,
Or work our way forward. So should I start with training how I started, or
yeah, actually, yeah, how did you initially get involved with training? Um,
yeah. So so I'm quite a bit older than you.
mm,
But back in the late 70s, um, there had been a downturn in the auto industry,
mm,
and the industry had lost a lot of its designers and engineers, technicians, trade schools people to, because of a recession, they left. They went, pretty much a lot of them went to Texas, started working on the oil rigs.
mm,
Probably weren't going to come back. Then all of a sudden the auto industry starts making a comeback, and we had a shortage of people. So at that point, my dad and a buddy of his at Chrysler they both worked there,
mm,
uh, ended up putting together a drafting school. So drafting and technology school, and he wrote all the papers, did all that, had that set up in the basement. And here I was right next to him, watching what he was doing, seeing how he was doing it. And he would have me start doing these exercises, checking the papers and moving forward. So that was my first exposure to, you know, somebody having a job and then creating something and then started teaching. By
mm,
the time I graduated high school, I'd already taken the class, had a certificate, and was ready to go to work. Um,
mm,
you know, there was a point in my life that what I wanted to do is go to Center of Creative Studies and get into advertising. And that changed. I was able to get right into my first job and progress through that. With that foundation, once I had been a designer for a while, I'd probably worked for 10, I'd say 10 different companies,
mm,
learning how to do instrument panels, interior trim, seats, body side moldings, all these things, learning how to design them. The industry changed again, and it went from manual drafting to computer aided design.
mm,
I took the classes that were offered, and as I took those classes, I wrote out probably 5 books because that was just the way that I learned. I heard it, I did it, I wrote it down, and pretty much about, I'd say about 6 months after I'd had the training, um, one of my first bosses had started an engineering company, and he was going to have all of his people that were working at Chrysler trained.
mm.
That was going to cost him about $3,000 a head to have put him through the class.
Not cheap.
So I called Frenchie up and I said, "Hey, Frenchie, how about I'll teach your people how to do this, and I'll do it for half the price and give them all the training that they need." So I'm working full-time 50 hours a week. I'm teaching 20 hours a week. And that's where I started. So that became the foundation of everything that we ended up growing, you know. So my dad had the manual class, I had the CAD classes, He had a bunch of instructors. I ended up hiring a bunch of instructors, and we had a pretty good trade school for a lot of years. Trained a lot of people, probably over 3,000 people around the world went through that training.
Yeah, and so like in the process of hiring people, are there some things that you learned, and was it like tougher than you expected? Because it's a pretty big difference going from drafting and designing to leading like a group of people.
Yeah, it is. It is. You know, one of the key things is when you're looking to hire somebody to work for you,
Mhm.
is it really that they're working for you, or are they working with you? You just happen to be the boss.
Right.
So you need to get along with the person.
Mhm.
You have to be willing to share ideas, set direction, and to collaborate together. Every idea is a good idea,
Mhm.
and every mistake you make is a learning experience. So the the hiring of people, you want people on your team, you want mutual respect, you want trust, and you want to be able to empower them to make the decisions
Mhm.
and not be afraid that they made a decision, because you can always fix it.
Right. And I'm imagining that a lot of you had like overlapping skill sets as well. Would you say that this is like a way that you can deal with that? Because I've heard a lot of people talk about making sure that you and your co-founders' skill sets don't overlap, except it sounds like you and everybody you were working with was on the same page.
Yeah, you know, through the design, engineering, manufacturing, you know, we had some challenges there, and we can get into those a little bit. But with the current company,
Mhm.
it's a different dynamic. You have you I have people working for me that are half my age.
Mhm.
They're a different generation. They think differently. They they have different aspirations,
Mhm.
and that's fine, right? And so then you even break that down into some other subsets. You've got young people that are focused on business, software development, and graphic artists. So you have, you know, the right side and the left side of the brain. You've got the, you know, analytical, engineering, got to solve a problem side of the brain, and then you have the creative side of thinking and going, boy, it just needs to work like this.
Mhm.
So sometimes being able to get everybody to see it from the same side, to map it out on a we have a marker walls in the office, and identify a problem, and then have everybody contribute to it and explain their position with no fear of what their position is. And then they come together. It works out great.
You know, which mindset would you say that you are? Uh,
Uh, boy, I'm you know, I've been analyze, you know, at the military, they did a lot of different testing, and they go and they review your personality, and they see what type of person you are.
Mhm.
And I'm right in the middle on everything. So
Mhm.
on the business side, on the uh, thinking about how you're going to assemble or disassemble something, so the manufacturing part of it, and then tie in the creative part. So it's a little bit crazy and a little bit all over the map, uh, but try to keep an open line of communication.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. In particular, you said that you had some challenges with engineering and manufacturing. Would you mind expanding on that?
Yeah, you know, over the years, you know, I've worked in different scenarios where you had at some companies, the designers and engineers were best buddies with the people on the shop floor. So the skilled trades, you know, the machinists, and they would collaborate together and solve problems and come up with the best solution.
Mhm.
Excuse me. And in some companies, it was I guess the word I would use would be almost more dictatorial. I'm the engineer. You're going to do it the way I told you to do it. Don't ask any questions, just get it done. Completely the wrong approach, because I'll tell you that the person on the floor that's making that part over and over again, they're going to come up with a better way, a simpler way, an easier way to enhance the way the designer or the engineer is thinking about the solution. So, one of the things I always took was, if there was a problem or there was a part failure, I would grab that designer or engineer, take them to the floor, and facilitate a conversation between the two groups of people. And after doing that a few times, then they ended up doing it on their own. But that took about, I don't know, 2.5 years to get that to work smoothly.
That's the way that you described it. It sounded like a one-time event.
No, it was like across the board. It had been a culture that had been put in place, that all those barriers needed to be broke down before it was accepted, because there was too much fear that if they changed, they may have gotten in trouble. So it took some time. It's a much better organization now, and they work well together. They barbecue together. They have lunch parties together now, and they do quite well.
I was wondering, in a work environment like that, is it important to define specific roles very strictly, or is it better to allow people to kind of work it out themselves? Like,
I think you have to have the roles, right? You have to know that your job is you're making these parts, and your job is that you're designing these parts, right? But you need to make sure that they know when they get a question or they get stuck, go talk. Don't wait. Don't not ask the question.
Gotcha. So at what stage in your career was this? I remember you were working in the automotive industry and teaching people. You were training, you'd hired a whole bunch of people on the side, in addition to working like a full-time job. Then what did you do next after that?
That ended up turning into a full-time engineering company. Something had to give, right? So I'm working full-time, building teams, growing different communities, working at different facilities, and teaching. And I had just set up a team for a product design group at this smaller company that had specifically been doing aerospace work, but they wanted to also do automotive work. So I set up the automotive group for them. One of the guys came in, and he did a ton of aerospace work, owned his own company, a foundry that made the skins for airplanes. And he did work on fighter jets, Boeing aircraft, Northrop, Lockheed, Bell helicopter. And he said, you know what? He goes, if you ever want to do something different, give me a call. And he got me thinking, and I gave him a call. We had lunch, and he goes, I got 2 CAD stations in my office. I'll have you do all my work. You think you might want to do that? And I said, well, I'll need 8 more computers plus the 2 you have, so that I could still run the school and that I could grow a business on the basis of what he had. So he had some guaranteed work. If I had the 8 more computers, I had enough business with the training school, and then grew that into the engineering company, which shortly after that, it was about 2 years later, that individual, his name is Dick, took me on a road show to Boeing, Northrop, Lockheed, Bell helicopter, all around the country. It was him and 3 other business owners and myself. We did that for 2 weeks.
Mhm.
And then he went into a meeting, and when we were at Bell Helicopter, he comes out of the meeting and he goes, "They want to give you a single source contract for $2 million." I'm like, "What?" Now I'm only like 30 years old at this point,
Mhm.
right? And I'm like, "Well, geez, Dick, I'm not sure about this." And he goes, "Well, you're darn straight you're sure about this. You're doing it." So
Yeah.
the next thing you know, I got an office in Texas, in Fort Worth. I got an office in Detroit, and we are just doing a ton of business. I mean, it was a really good time to make that transition. Worked out nicely.
So yeah, you know, I think this is a really good story for a couple of reasons, and one of them is that it's a really great example of being an entrepreneur, um,
Hmm.
which is kind of similar to being an entrepreneur. It's where you're like innovating from within a company, um, and you're helping to grow the company from your own personal role. Like, what do you think were some attributes about what it is that you were doing or how you were working at the time? Um, that caused you to receive these offers, because I think that is the goal of people that are an entrepreneur inside of a company, is to be put in a higher power position where they can influence the company more and continue to make these changes on a larger scale.
Right. Um, so when you're in the inside of a company and you're you're doing something and you're in a job that you enjoy,
Mhm.
um, you're going to be invited to meetings and you're going to be in the meetings collaborating with other people. As a younger person, your idea is just as valuable as the senior person's idea. You need to time the question correctly, but don't be shy. Or if you are a little shy, wait until after the meeting. Call the person up. Ask if you could meet with them. Tell them you have some ideas. Figure out how you can collaborate and get come up with the answer together, right? And next thing you know, you're going to start being asked to participate in other projects,
Mhm.
and that's what gets you noticed. And it's not to be pushy or arrogant or anything like that. It's to provide a different perspective on a solution.
Mhm.
On the outside with that, everything that I've done throughout my career is what has led to where I'm at today with all the companies, working for people and starting new companies. A lot of it is reputation. A lot of it is networking,
Mhm.
communicating, helping people. Um, we have one person here today. He called me last week. I think we talked at 11:30 at night about his business and his business setup. I want to help. Koya, you and I have also talked, and I will help and try to provide valuable information.
Yeah, what is your, now as a leader, like what is your reaction when somebody approaches you like that outside of a meeting or like within a meeting? Um, and you said like it might feel like it's being arrogant. What is your reaction if somebody does that?
I think that it is fine. That there is, if you don't ask, you're not going to learn.
Mhm.
And if you just keep it inside, you're going to be like, oh, geez, I missed an opportunity. Maybe the person that you approach doesn't have time right that minute,
Mhm.
right? That's okay. You can set it up for a Saturday, a Sunday, a 7 o'clock in the morning, an 11:30 at night. Those types of things. People genuinely usually want to help,
Mhm.
and those are the people that you want to have help you.
Yeah. Do you think that you would be engaged like that if you weren't interested in the company? Because I know that you said that this was something that you found personally interesting. Um,
Um, I've talked with people or helped with solutions on things I had no real idea about what they were doing.
mhm.
but I was able to help on their business structure, their business setup, what the things that they should be thinking about, who they should be talking to, introducing them to other people, helping them with the networking. It's usually somebody's got something of value that they can share with you to get you where you want to go.
So moving forward a bit then, at what point did you decide that you were going to create Elm Park Labs? I believe we left off with the airplane.
Right. So I had, in 2004, I had written the language for a patent.
Mm.
And in 2004, that was to take and animate the CAD data so that you could visually see step-by-step instructions rather than printing it out, cutting it out, typing it up, and that would be page 1 to a 500-page book. Okay. Yeah. I did some prototypes, did some animations, spent a lot of money on the patent stuff, and again got to the point that I needed to make a decision. I still have the engineering company, I'm still doing some training, I'm still helping some other companies out with some other projects.
Mm.
But am I going to be able to launch what I just came up with as far as this patent goes with some predictive analysis too?
Mm.
Or is the timing not right? So I did some consulting for a little bit. The patents, often patent land, going through its process, costing me money every year.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I'm in a period of time where it was like, okay, I'm going to go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go work for somebody. So I ended up, that's when I went in 2009, I took a job with the Army. And that's a whole nother story. So, and I said, if the patent is awarded, I'm going to stand up another company. And that's Elm Park Labs today. The patent was awarded in 2014.
Yep.
And by 2016, the company was up and running and we were in our office.
Mm-hmm.
So it was based on the foundation of everything that we did in the past.
Over the period of that 2 years, what types of infrastructure were you putting in place?
So, some of the things that we needed to do, one, we had to first decide, how are we going to, what do we need, right? What do we need for office space? What do we need for people? How are we going to get the people? And what are we going to work on? Because, you start in the business, there's no customers, and you need to build the foundational software before you really can launch anything. So we hired the lead software person, lead graphics person, and then we brought in some interns that would work after they got done with school or on the days that they didn't have classes, sometimes on Saturday and Sunday. And we spent about 3 years building the software application prior to launching. So that launch was third quarter of 19.
Yeah. Did you do any fundraising in this time?
Oh, that's an interesting story. Mm-hmm. So once the patent was awarded in 14, right? So that was the end of 14. I get the notification. And I'm like, okay, we need to do something. This is going to cost a lot of money to get this off the ground. Mm-hmm. So through some networking and through some friends, I was introduced to this one gentleman, very nice guy. But he had just already funded another company, and he hit it big. He ended up, the product was a big success. They ended up selling the company for $100 million. Mm-hmm. And I get introduced to him and he's thinking, wow, this is a great idea. He puts together a proposal, does a bunch of due diligence, sends me to go talk to a bunch of people, really entertaining me, taking me down to the Detroit Athletic Club. And, this is going on for like a few months. Taking the guys, Cody and Bryce, taking them out to dinner and talking to them. And, these young guys had never been exposed to anything like that. They were very impressed also.
Right.
Well, we get the proposal, and he wants 70% of the company going forward, right? So
Yeah.
he'd make a $2 million investment, but he wants 70%.
Right.
And I was very, very nice and very thankful, and it was very close to me maybe going for it, but I said, no, thank you.
Mm.
So then we started down another road and ran into another guy, and he wanted to, just for the introduction into the people that could potentially invest, he wanted 20% just to make that introduction.
Mm.
So that's not the right way to go.
No.
So I'm talking to a friend of mine that was in the accounting field,
Mm.
and she's like, Kim, we know a lot of people with a lot of good jobs. Why don't we pull that network of people together and do a presentation, explain about the business, put together what we think is fair, and see how it goes. So I had to make a decision about the company structure and how we were going to do this to benefit the investors, their friends and their family, and what does that look like? So I came up with a formula that said I wanted $1 million to be able to put into the company. And if we structure it the right way, and we do grow this, and we are acquired one day, we need to set it up so that the investors can make that money, that not just the money they invested back, but they could own equity in the company where they can come along with us. So potentially they could make 5 to 10 times their investment. So we set up that structure. That first investor meeting that we had, I invited probably about 15 couples. My parents were there. And we raised about $350,000 in the first meeting. And what we've done is we've kept the raising of these funds going, and will until probably first quarter of 2021, up to giving away 20% of the company at that same valuation. So the way that works out is about 1% for $100,000.
Gotcha. And do you think that you would have done that same ratio to a single investor, or is it important to you that it's distributed over multiple people?
Well, they're all getting the same deal, right? So, some investors have invested $25,000. Some have invested 100. Some have invested a couple hundred. Some have invested 50. But it's all added up, and it just happens to work out that someplace in that network, they might be only 1 or 2 people removed from knowing everybody inside the group of people, which is pretty interesting in itself.
Yeah, I think so too. What about like building the team? I know that you touched on having some interns, but then after like the platform was developed, did you go any farther into like hiring additional non-technical people?
Yep. So now we've brought on a business development person full-time in the company. We have extended our external sales team outside of the company that are I have history with both of them over the years from my design and engineering days, and now they've been friends for a long time, some more than 25 years, and we have just brought on a project development person that will handle, everything a little bit from sales to project management to connections and processes and internal procedures to help firm up everything that we do. We have more software developers now. We brought out a UI UX person. So it's growing, and we need to look at bringing on more interns at this point too, and start getting them up to speed. Though there will be a significant shortage of people shortly.
Well, that's always a good sign.
Yeah.
Let's see. So we just went through leadership, talking about the workflow. And I think I might start just asking general questions about the company, and the future that you see the company having, because I think a lot of it is also the vision. And if you wouldn't mind like breaking down like some of the steps that, or like how you break down the steps to get there. So currently you're selling to like large companies who in turn are using this to make their own product more marketable.
So we sell it to the larger companies so that they can repeatedly do the same type of training or procedure over and over again. And it doesn't matter what part of the world those teams are in, right? So that is going good. So that's in automotive and in medical. The vision of where we're going is to expand into Europe, to grow the business, and to evaluate this down the road of what do we want it to be, right? What do the shareholders want it to be? What does the team want it to be? And where are we in the development cycle and the maturity of the business? Now that could happen because of how fast everything is moving right now. That could happen, within a few years, or it could take 10 years to the point where you're making a decision, because there's going to be an inflection point of growth in people to build the company to be able to deliver all those products, where it's going to cross with the technology is so mature that everything can be done and created quicker than what you predicted.
Gotcha. So there's like, it's going to be like rapidly increasing in speed of, just like the speed of innovation.
Yep.
Let's see, there's a couple of questions in the Q&A here. How did you adequately come to a valuation of 10 million? Was it the first investors offer and go from there?
Yeah, so the first investor with the $2 million, and wanting 70% of the company, there was no way we were going to be able to sustain that. And what I wanted to do is build something more of a team where the investors were part of the company, where we are all working together to the same end goal. And all I did was said, how can I do this? How can I do the math to get to giving up 10% of the company? I need $1 million. So that means the valuation is 10. Right? It was just simple math.
Right. What is the single most valuable connection to you in your company?
What do you mean?
I guess perhaps like the single most valuable connection to like a customer maybe, or it could have been like, I think Dick, right, was the one that introduced you. I'm not sure what to make of this one.
So is that for on the business side?
Yeah, if you have an example on the business side, that would be probably an appropriate answer.
The single most helpful person. So that's been kind of been different levels, right? It's been if, just thinking about the first demo, the prototype that we had to build to prove out the product. If Bryce, our first software engineer, didn't do that for me working in my kitchen, that was really important, right? Because that set the ability to go out and show people what we did so that we could get that interest. And then there's been multiple other people. There's been, the coaching on how do you structure sales commission? How do you take on giving up equity in the company? What's the fair amount of equity to give up to the employees of the company? How do we set up an option pool for the company? Those individuals, and they've all been different people to bring in that value. There's not been just one single individual that has been able to make these recommendations along the way.
I think that was a very good answer to the question. This is a kind of broad question about when you're like approaching a problem, particularly a company comes to you and they say, hey, would you be able to train our employees on X? How do you break down the problem in such a way that not only helps people understand it, but helps you teach it?
So the best and easiest thing to do is somebody comes to you and they say, I want to put together, I'll relate it to VR, right? I want to put together a VR training program that is going to allow our technicians to replace any type of door in a stadium. So I got the stadium door, I got the bathroom doors, I got the restaurant doors, I got push doors, I got emergency doors, all this stuff. Can you do that? The answer is yes. And then it becomes, how can you do it, right? Well, the best thing to do is to talk to those technicians right from day one. Show me what your difficulty is. What are the challenges that you have? What needs to be repaired? What needs to be replaced? And how do you go through that discovery process right now? Then we take all of that information that we get from those people, the people that do the job, not somebody that thinks they know what the person does, but the people that do the job. Take that information and then incorporate that into the solution. Once you've built the solution, they're the people that review it, they do the audit on it, and then you do the improvement from there. You will never get it right the first time done.
I think that's a good mindset to go into any problem with.
Yes.
And what's your favorite part about your job?
The people.
The people.
Yeah, the people that work at the company, the people that we engage with, the investors, the customers, all of them. And I really enjoy seeing the younger team members getting to the point that they can communicate with the customers in a clear and concise fashion. It is just so intriguing to me to watch this over the last 4 years, 4.5 years, from the shy people that they were to begin with to getting on a Zoom call and laying out exactly what we're going to do. It's really impressive.
Let's see. How do you regain control in your company when your employees are essentially building the entire product, mainly solidifying your use and existence as a non-technical CEO?
How do you do that? Well, I guess the other side of that is they don't have the knowledge about the business structure, the connections, the, I the ownership of that, right? You know, so you got the technical side, and that is a huge amount of value, right? So you need to reward that. That's, you know, salary, it's employment agreements, it's options in the company, making sure that when the time comes that there's an upside, that everybody involved in the company experiences that upside. The technical side of that, because everything's different, right? You got the software side, you got the graphics side, that you got the UI, UX side. You still have to have somebody that can pull on the thread from each one of those to build the product to its success. You know, so UI, UX may have an idea of how the product should flow, but that's only one opinion. How does that affect the software person, and how does that affect what I can get done in graphics?
Let's see, I've got one more question for you, and then I guess if there's any more questions in Q&A, we can answer those as well. So what leads the desire for entrepreneurship or the problem?
What leads the, I'm sorry?
So like what leads a company, like the desire for entrepreneurship or the idea? I think this question, it's coming from a sense where I've personally seen people, and you know, even myself, we would like to be entrepreneurs, and are kind of searching for a problem. And I'm wondering, you know, since it seems like you worked like really hard for a while before starting your company, like what like inspired you to work so hard in like starting not only like this training outside of your current job, but also being able to like innovate from within that current job?
Right. Well, you have to have a desire and a passion about anything it is that you're working on. So if you come up with an idea about how to do something, and it's your idea, you're going to be passionate about that idea, and you're going to want to own it.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, the first step is to figure out, how do I get this out there, right? And once you've figured out how to get it out there and how to do it,
Mm-hmm.
now you're an entrepreneur, and you're looking to grow a business around an idea. So you've got to build that foundation. Is the idea good enough? Do people really like it? Do they want to use it? If your technology displaces workers, would you be able to teach people a new job, which is working inside your company, doing something in your company? And are you creating something for you or for the many?
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I've read a couple good books. There's, you know, and the other thing too, you got to be able to work nonstop to be able to make it come together. You know, just because you're the owner or you're the CEO, it doesn't mean you don't take the trash out. You know, I mean, I'm paying the guys to do the work, not to take the trash out. So, you know, couple books, Blueprint to Business. That's a good one, real short.
Mm-hmm.
And 10 times rule, another good one.
Mm-hmm.
And Risky is the New Safe.
Awesome. Those sound like good recommendations. I'm sure
Yeah.
will be reading those books. Well, like I said, I think that was my last question. And unless anybody else in the audience has some other questions as well, you know, I want to thank you very much for being here. And is there anywhere that I can direct people to go to support you or to learn some more about Elm Park Labs and what you guys do.
Yep, elmparklabs.com.
Mhm.
And I think my phone number is right on the website.
Awesome. Yeah, like you mentioned a couple of times, you're open to people reaching out. So I'm sure that some people here will be taking advantage of that as well. And if you're not here live, well, you know what to do.
Yeah,
uh, but yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us, Kim, and spending an hour of your time to talk about, well, your experiences in the industry. I'm sorry we couldn't touch on everything because I know that you have much more that you've done.
yeah, it's a lot of years.
Yeah. Do you have anything closing that you'd like to say?
No, I think, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. I will look forward to helping make some introductions for you with the other schools to see what we can do to get to collaboration across the different colleges and universities. I think you're on to something that could be very beneficial to everybody.
Well, definitely. Thank you. And, if anybody here isn't from MSU as well, MSUEA would love to connect with you and anybody that you're involved with. So please reach out. My LinkedIn, I'm Koya Saito. You can find me on LinkedIn.
Great. Koya, thank you so much for the time today, and thank you everybody else.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you, Kim. And I hope everybody here has a really nice rest of your day.
Great. Thanks. See ya.
All right, bye-bye now.